pues a continuación se abre el primer bloque, perdón, titulado Los datos, datos abiertos y la información pública, para mejorar el servicio a los ciudadanos, con el caso de Estonia, de Raul Rikk, donde va a contar la experiencia de Estonia durante su sesión. Gracias.
Great. Buenos dias. That's what I know about in Spanish, actually. So it's great to be here. I arrived yesterday evening late, and unfortunately I didn't have much time to see the city, but as much as I could see in the morning, it looked very beautiful. So in some time I hope that the organizers will invite me back, so I will certainly come. If I can get my presentation on the screen, that would be even better. I was asked to talk about electronic Estonia, digital Estonia, how we have used data in our society and how we have organized our data. So that's what I'm going to do about 20-25 minutes, and then I leave 10 minutes for the questions. So I hope that we can have some interaction as well. If you look at my title, you probably think that why a security guy talks about digital innovation and usage of data. But that's because in Estonia, we do these things together. So we see that cybersecurity is not a break to the digital development, but it's actually vice versa. It's the basis and enabler of digital innovation. So when about 25, 30 years ago, we started to develop our digital country, then we had to solve first the problem of insecure internet. So we had to figure out how to make internet secure first, and after that, we were able to use it for electronic services. So that's exactly what we did. And our cybersecurity community and e-developers are working together. So I can talk about this digital innovation as well. We think that Estonia is the coolest digital society at the moment. And that's actually in the sense of that we have really cold weather in Estonia. So yesterday, when I started to come here, we had minus 20 degrees outside. I was surprised as well. So we already thought that the spring will start, but not another winter came. So, and there was a lot of snow, and I had trouble to clean my car in order to go to the airport. So, and that's actually one of the reasons why we think we have put so much effort to the digital services, because who really wants to go outside with this weather if you can do everything through the computer? And that's what we have done over the 20 years. Also, you see that our population is not the biggest one in the world, but for sure not the smallest one either. So we have 1.3 million people, and we have to really think that how to use this workforce effectively, efficiently. So has been always our issue or difficulty, actually, challenge, let's say so. That how to use this number of people to compete with other rest of the world economically, and also if you look at the governance of the country, then there is a question as well that we can take certain percentage of the society to do the government work. The question is how to make them as effective as possible. So that's another reason why we have invested so much to ICT and in the future to robotics as well. And also the third reason why we have put so much focus to ICT is because about 30 years ago, we got rid of the Soviet Union and got our independence back. And at the same time, the ICT revolution started around the world. And we saw that that's a really good way to reach governance efficiency, economic competitiveness, and also for some reason, Estonians just like to do things through the computers. I don't know what is the psychology behind it, but that's just the way as it is. And when we started to invest to ICT, our GDP per capita was less than $3,000 in the beginning of the 90s. And now we have reached almost $34,000. Of course, that's not all because of the ICT. There are other sectors in the economy there are as well, but we saw that the biggest portion of the success is thanks to the ICT development. In some places in the world rankings, we have a pretty good position, but also, as you see, like the cybersecurity index, we are the first in Europe, and freedom of the internet, there is also, Estonia has the first place, and etc. But when we started to monitor the ranking systems, so I thought my talk is so boring, so that somebody, go away. But yes. Or it's also because, if you start to promote yourself, there is, the moral aspect that you should not do that. So I skipped the slide and go to the next one. So we have one very great famous thing in Estonia. That's the song contest or song festival, actually. It's every 4th year. Almost 1/3 of the country will come together and sing together. So we think that we can do 2 things really well: the song festival and things in our cyberspace. These are the things that we really love. Because otherwise, when you see Estonians sitting in one room, not talking to each other, they're actually communicating, but through the computers. There is usually, maybe it's because of the cold climate, but we are not very talkative persons in Estonia. So, but at least we can, the cyberspace works for our favor. But if we look some statistics, then 88% of the Estonians have the broadband connection in the country, and the rest, 12%, is because most of the people live in the cities, and there are some rural areas where just the people don't have the broadband. But otherwise, we have the first 5G system put in place last year together with Sweden in Estonia, in Europe, so we are proud about that as well. And also what it has been a really, really revolutionary thing in our society is the electronic ID. That's we use for everything. We have the electronic ID card, but also mobile ID and also smart ID. I will emphasize that a little bit later, but this has been the basis, the cornerstone of our digital society. Because of that, 99% of the electronic services or government services are online. And the 1% is just a couple of things. Any guesses? What might these services be? Any guess? No? This is getting married and getting divorced. So to do that, you actually have to show up physically, in front of the official and show that you are in the right mind, getting married. And of course, you're in the right mind getting the divorce. So that we have to go there. But otherwise, the official makes it happen still through the computer. So the service is digital, but you have to show up. And also, when you want to buy real estate, then you have to go to the notary as well, physically. But otherwise, the notary procedure is electronic. So these are the things. One of the first game-changing solution for us was the e-cabinet. So our government works without paper for 20 years now. So everything is prepared electronically. The decision-making happens electronically as well. And I have here a 3-minute video clip how it works. So let's look at it.
Estonian government sessions are held in the government session hall of Stenbock House, where long-standing traditions meet innovative technical solutions. In 2000, the Estonian government discarded the old paper document-based decision-making system and opted for an innovative digital system, e-cabinet. This tailor-made solution has been designed to prepare and conduct government meetings in an electronic form, entirely without paper. In 2000, e-cabinet was based on stationary computer terminals situated in the government session hall. Today, the session hall is free of any stationary electronic devices. This means ministers can access e-cabinet simply from their own portable digital devices, be it a laptop, tablet, or smartphone. Ministers securely log into e-cabinet with their ID card or mobile ID. They can access all items submitted to government for discussion or decision. They can view the forthcoming meeting's agenda, notify colleagues on their views, or give input and even give preliminary votes on a proposal well before the actual meeting has begun. The items on the agenda with no objections will not be debated, but will be adopted by default at the beginning of the government session. The system is connected to another information system that has been designed for consulting draft legislation and other government instruments between the ministries as well as with the public. The e-consultation system. Both effectively link the different branches of government into one seamless information network. Furthermore, e-cabinet enables the secure digital signing of government legal acts and other documents. For example, all government regulations are digitally signed by the Prime Minister, the responsible minister, and the Cabinet Secretary during or shortly after the sessions. After every session, the documents are stored in an easily accessible archive dating back to 2000, when the innovative system was first established. Most importantly, e-cabinet has helped introduce more efficient decision-making procedures and has helped to save time. Before the system, sessions took 4 to 5 hours. Thanks to e-cabinet, average sessions last 30 minutes. With e-cabinet, the Republic of Estonia has created a fast, transparent, and environmentally friendly governing tool that is constantly evolving to better suit the needs of our innovatively minded government.
So our thinking was that this should be the first solution should go to the government. So when the politicians and the ministers see how it works, they're more willing to use electronic systems in every area. And that's exactly what have happened. Another very interesting and unique system that we have is the internet-based voting system. So it's not a regular electronic voting. So it means that we don't need to go to the polling station. I can use whatever computer is available worldwide. So I can take my computer, I can take another computer, and I can use that in order to log into the voting application and vote for the parliament, for the European Parliament, for the local government as well. So for everything. And we can use it for the referendums also. And also what is interesting aspect what is there is that it's 10 times cheaper than the regular conventional voting. So usually in Estonia the voting, the cost is not high. The regular voting, organizing the voting costs about 2 million euros. That's, as a number, is not big, but compared to electronic system, it takes only 200,000 euros in order to organize everything. It includes the developments, the security, everything. And that's because it's based on the cybersecurity ecosystem that I will show you a little bit later. It's based on electronic identity. And also the voting itself takes about 2 minutes or even less. So I just log in, I select a person, I vote, and that's done. I remember when I studied in the United States, one of my classmates was from Belgium, and then we started with electronic voting. It was 2005 or 2006. And my classmate had to, because in Belgium the voting is mandatory, so he had to travel to Washington, D.C., to his embassy in order to get some papers, and later again in order to vote. And he said that it took him about a week to do all the procedure. And then I was able to do the same thing in 2 minutes. So it's a huge efficiency that is in the electronic system. And of course, there has been a big debate about it. That is it secure enough or isn't it secure? But the numbers show that how people trust electronic voting. Just last weekend, we had the parliamentary elections, and we got the highest number of electronic votes. So it's about 44% of the old voters voted electronically. And as you see from the statistics, that the different colors indicate different elections. So the height of the bar depends on how many total number of voters we had. And if you look at the same color bars, then you see that the number of electronic voters is growing. And in some day, we believe that we can use only the electronic voting system. Because if we use the parallel system, we use the conventional voting and we use electronic voting, then we don't get the economic efficiency out of that. Then it's like a luxury product. We have to both the expenses. But in the long run, because it's a political question, we have not wanted to push people to go to the electronic voting unless they feel comfortable with that. So that's why we don't push them. But in 10 years period, 20 years period, we think that we're going to have only the electronic voting system. Also, it is very easy to organize a business in Estonia because of the digital ID and automated systems. You can establish a new company in a couple of hours. The record has been 18 minutes, so just opening the internet, starting to do procedures, it's possible to establish a company in 18 minutes as well. But, it's not really difference. There is no difference if it's 18 minutes or 2 hours. The meaning is that you can do it quickly and hassle-free. And also what we want to reach by 2020 is the full automatization in tax reporting. So to take the burden away from the companies to do all the paperwork, just make it everything digital. And also what we have started to do a couple of years ago is the e-residency program. It means that every person around the world can apply for the Estonian ID card, and once the person gets it, the person can establish a company or do other operations digitally there's no need to come to Estonia physically, but the person could operate the business through Estonia just doing everything electronically. Also, we try to promote ICT in our schools. Most of the schools use electronic diary, so all the administrative procedures, giving grades, supervising a child, development, etc., is done electronically. And basically, the electronic diary puts together the parents, the children, teachers, and the administrative officials as well, in order to make sure that the child development goes well. And of course, children don't like it at all. So when my son gets a bad grade in the school, I will see it immediately from my mobile device. And when he comes at home, then there is no way he can hide that. And that's good that the children don't have the voting right yet. So we can still monitor what they are actually doing. And also what we want to reach is by 2020 that all learning materials are electronic, just to take the burden away from the child to carry the bag all the time with him or her. So there is possibility to use electronic school bag, and that's exactly what we would like to do. So summa summarum, we have hundreds of different electronic services in Estonia, and there is a really high expectation in the country that if there is an organization that provides some sort of service, the service should be electronic. There is this kind of expectation in the society. There's no question so much about security, but there is expectation that there has to be an electronic services. So what is behind all of that? The main thing that we have, as I mentioned, is to make we have made the internet secure. So we have created kind of like a shield, secure shield over the internet. And the shield provides encryption, timestamping, electronic signatures, everything that makes the usage of the internet secure. We didn't want to create a separate network for government officials and another network for the citizens and the other one for the entrepreneurs. The main logic is that everybody is in the internet. So let's use the internet, but the question is that before we can use it, we have to make it secure. So that's what we have done. We have secure data exchange. We have also organized our data. One of the principles that we have is that there should not be or cannot be overlapping databases. It means that, for example, if we have certain information in the population registry, like my name, gender, address, etc., the basic personal information, then other state agencies, officials, or different organizations cannot gather and store the same information. They should use this information that is in the population registry. That's why we use this data exchange logic. Every institution has their own data that they are responsible of, and they should share this information with other entities. So that's what we do. And the effect is that if somebody makes the change in the population registry, like me, I'm going there, I want to change my name, I change the name in the population registry, all other service providers will get this new information immediately. So there is no confusion what the information is right, what the information is wrong. The access to the data happens the way that when we have these registers, nobody has direct access to the registry information. We get the access through these different electronic services. So the electronic service itself is basically the system that organizes data from different registers and databases. So it's like baking a cake. You don't eat flour directly, or you don't eat sugar directly. You make a cake from these ingredients. So the raw data that we have in the registers is like a basic resource, like a flour, sugar, butter, etc. We take pieces from here, pieces from there, and put it together and create electronic service that is eatable. That's the logic. In order to access the electronic service, we monitor very strictly who has authorization and who doesn't. So for example, if there is a policeman that needs to use a certain police electronic service, there is according to the position of the policeman, he can see certain things, not everything. And in order to manage these access rights, we use this electronic identity. And as I mentioned, we have the ID card that has a chip, but we have also mobile ID, which means that the same functionality is in the SIM card of the mobile phone. So I can first of all identify myself with ID card or give digital signature, but I can do the same thing with mobile phone. And also we have an application that we call Smart ID, which means that you don't even need this separate SIM card for mobile phone, but you just download an application as an app, and you can use that as well. You can still identify yourself and give legally valid digital signatures. But what this ID card actually does, it is a unified encryption device. So by issuing ID cards or mobile IDs to the citizens, the government gives encryption device to the hands of the users. So they can use this encryption device in order to make the communication over the internet secure. The chip on the card is the crypto processor that makes the connectivity secure. Because there is a lot of talk about how to use data, but from the government perspective, it's really, really important to make this data secure as well, and services secure as well. Also, and this, it's not only for the government officials, but for everybody, to the citizens, to the businessmen, to the government officials. We think that the effect comes from that if all these different communities are in the same secure operating environment. Otherwise, it's too complicated. At the moment, I have only 2 PIN codes that I can use for everything. I don't need hundreds of credentials, like login names and passwords. I just need one, and I can do everything with that. That's the real value for the users. Also, what we have calculated is that by giving digital signatures, if our citizens use that digital signature systems, then we can save about 2% of GDP. And it happens the way that instead of going somewhere, using that time to give simple signature, you can do it electronically. You can save a lot of time by just doing things quickly without going anywhere. And I actually think that the number is too small. The effect, because we use so widely this digital ID for everything, then the number of that we can save is actually bigger. So what about the future? Our goal is to have zero bureaucracy with invisible services. It means that we want to take the burden away from the citizens in order to keep in mind when they have to do some official activity. We want to make it the government's responsibility to remind citizens to do everything automated way just to prepare the service for the citizens. One example is the electronic tax declaration that we have used for 15 years now. It means that government collects the data and prepares the tax declaration for the citizen. So when I go to the electronic tax board, I already see the pre-filled tax declaration. So government has this information, they should do it for me. Why should I gather this information from my bank and from my working place and different places? Government has this information anyway, so that's their responsibility to put this data together. So I just go there, I check the tax declaration, and if I'm okay with that, I just confirm it, and it again takes about 5 minutes to do the annual tax declarations. And we want to take the same logic to every service, just to make it as easy as possible for the users. Also, we have started to cooperate with Finland in order to create cross-border digital services. We already have done some from 2017, so it means that the same data that is accessible by the Finnish officials and the Estonian officials. Because we have a lot of Estonians working in Finland and a lot of Finns working in Estonia or doing business in Estonia. So the governments need this basic data. So why leave it to the persons instead of just sharing the data between the governments? And real-time economy, again, just to take the burden away from the businesses to do all different declarations if it could be automated. We want to make it happen the way that once some activity has been done, then it goes to the statistics, like electronic receipts, bills, etc. And also, one thing what we have started to do is the logic of the live event service design. So it means that at the moment the electronic services are provided by different state agencies. But it means that the person can do it electronically, but the user still needs to visit different agencies electronically in a certain manner. But we think that we will give the perspective, or we will design the service from the user's perspective so that if there is a life event like a childbirth or military service or other things that the citizen enters to the service and can see and do everything in one flow. There is no need to visit different state agencies. And the last thing, what we are focusing at the moment is everything that's related to robotics. Because as I mentioned, we don't have much people in Estonia. We need to go to the robotics a lot. So we already have this small package delivery robots driving on the streets, but we want to have more. So we put a lot of effort to that. And how it started from the government side, it started with developing suitable legislation for these new technologies. So we passed the law of autonomous vehicles in 2018, last year, and now we are dealing with a challenge how to give a special status for these self-driving vehicles and robots, because the problem is that they're not really like actors or subjects, so they don't think themselves so much, but they are not an objects either, because they can do certain things themselves. So we see that there is a need to develop a special status in the legislation for these devices and machines. The very simple problem that we had last year was that the small robot started to cross the street as a pedestrian, and then a vehicle came, a car, and the driver didn't see this robot, so the driver hit it. And now the question is that whose fault it is, and what the insurance should do with that, because that's not a vehicle. Whose fault was that? The robot's fault, or the company's fault to produce the robot, or is it the driver's fault who hit the robot? And so there's many questions. So it has to be solved legally in order to go ahead. And that's exactly what we are doing at the moment. And of course, the very cool thing that we call artificial intelligence at the moment, that's involved in every aspect of all that. Electronic services, robots, etc., etc. So that's very shortly about the electronic society of Estonia. And I think we have a little bit time to have some questions as well. So thank you from my side. That's him? Do you understand the questions? Oh, okay, yeah, exactly. So any questions? I think we have like 5 minutes for questions and answers. Yes, please, there is one. Oh, just a moment, there is a microphone as well.
Hi, thank you for your talk. Having the chance that you are the head of cybersecurity, can you have some comment about how you think the actual context, if you as government as a target, how do you think the threats have evolved, and what are the biggest concerns you have in the near future about security?
Yes, at the moment we think that we are in a good side, because we, as I mentioned, we use the system for even voting for the parliament. It means that we put a lot of effort to the security. And at the moment, we think that our cyberspace is secure enough, because we have these different systems, like the shield over the internet and the electronic ID. In the future, we think that for us, actually, the biggest threat is that if somebody jams the internet network. And that's not so much that what happens in the country, because we can easily close the digital borders and still provide the service in Estonia. But that's not the idea of the internet. We want to make sure that the services are available for everybody who are outside of the Estonia as well. So that's the biggest thing. Of course, we have used many techniques and technologies in order to make sure that this denial of service attacks doesn't have effect to us. But still, the jamming of the internet is the biggest problem, because the other aspects, like confidentiality of the internet, or of the data, and also the integrity of the data, is we solve it with encryption. So, and the encryption system is state of art. There is unbreakable at the moment. So we think that we are in the good side in that sense. But in the regular, for the regular persons who use the internet for basic, activities every day, not related to the government so much, they have the same problems. The ransomware, the phishing, somebody tries to steal the data or use the data that they have, and et cetera, et cetera. All these very common threats are out there. Okay. Another question? Yes, please.
Thanks for your talk. It was really interesting. I was wondering, when you were talking about your data infrastructure, how everything is controlled and like how you have all those decentralized databases. And I was wondering, who watches government? So how do you make yourselves accountable if a third-party organization or someone from the outside wants to double-check that government is doing what they say they are doing with their data?
Yeah. The whole logic is that the government or different officials, they don't have the total view of the data. We have decentralized the ownership of the data. So one ministry, so we didn't take the data away from different ministries and agencies, and we didn't put it together in one big database that is managed centrally. Everybody kept their data, they just made it electronic. We shared responsibilities, and nobody has the full picture of the whole data. So we think that that's the only way how to ensure the security, because there is, if there is somebody who should watch the centralized system, there is need also who watches the watchers, and then, the chain is, it doesn't end, basically. So that's our model. One more question. Then we should finish with that part. Okay, yeah.
With the statistics that you saw with the digital vote, what do you think has built so much trust in the last year? Like, what do you think has happened for that change, like to go to that 44%?
Actually, it's hard to say that what has happened. But if you look the dark blue bars, then there's kind of logic. It seems to be a trend. And hard to say. Maybe people have started to use the electronic IDs more and more. And we also, last year, we introduced the smart ID. So you don't need to get this ID card, or you don't need to get the special SIM card for mobile phone. You can just download an application from the App Store. So that makes even easier to use the electronic identity. Maybe that's the reason. But because we got the results last Sunday, we are surprised as well. So now we have started to figure out that what's behind that. But at least, actually, I see that it's still a small number. It should be higher. Yes. Okay, so thank you once again from my side, and I hope that someday I can be back in Zaragoza. Thank you very much.